Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast on this 17th of May of June 2019. I'm your host, Surreal Joe Quinn. As we discuss the world of sports and pop culture, we are of course streaming live from my YouTube channel. Certainly, you can catch the podcast on my YouTube channel anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes after the broadcast, after the podcast has completed. I hope everybody out there enjoyed their Father's Day weekend. Beautiful weather out there, and certainly a lot going on in the NBA, in particular in the world of sports, but in the NBA in particular. And that's where we're going to begin, of course, with the Los Angeles Lakers acquiring one Anthony Davis for what has to be what has to be probably more assets in between players and draft picks and future draft picks than any star player has been traded for in the history of the league. I mean, the Lakers, yes, they get Anthony Davis, who is without one question one of the top three or four talents in the league, maybe the best talent in the league, definitely a top five player in terms of talent and skill. But in the process, New Orleans gets Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart. Um, they get the boatload of draft picks that include the number four pick this year, 2021 top eight protected pick that can go into a 2022 unprotected pick, 2023 pick swap, unprotected 2024, and of course a pick swap for 2025. So they got listen. You can't. I mean, you gotta give David Griffin all the credit in the world. Normally, when trades are made like this, it's been basically automatic that the star player, the team that got the best player, wins the trade. Now, this could be one of these trades where both teams win. So, if the Los Angeles Lakers win a championship in 2020 or 2021, they are the odds-on favorite, the Vegas favorites to win it in 2020. Then that's a win for the Lakers. I mean, that's a win for the Lakers. Not that they won the trade, but that's a win for the Lakers no matter what happens with the Pelicans in the future. But if you're the Pelicans, you're already going to get Zion Williamson. You already have Drew Holiday. And you have all these assets, future coming in and moving forward in the future. You have set your franchise up for basically the next decade if you make the right moves. And if you even who knows what these picks are going to look like in 2024, 2023, 2025. No one knows. But the bottom line is they are assets. And in the NBA, if you're building a team, the only thing more valuable than a star player is an asset, is an asset, a undrafted lottery pick or an undrafted or a first round pick or first round draft picks. Those are the only things that are more valuable than star players on teams. And New Orleans has a boatload of them. Again, as a Laker fan, I should be more excited about this trade. You got LeBron James, you got Anthony Davis, despite the fact that LeBron James, coming off, didn't make the playoffs last year. He still was third team All NBA. Still probably one of the top five players in the league. Was fifth on my list as we ended in my final top five list in terms of ending the season. I should be more excited, but considering the state of the franchise and listen, it doesn't take a lot you want to talk about who made this deal happen. It was not Rob Pelinka. Okay, this deal happened because of Clutch Sports, Rich Paul, to a lesser extent, Kyrie Irving, and I'll get to that later on. This was not Rob Pelinka that made this deal happen. Okay, David Griffin talking sense into the New Orleans ownership, who didn't want to deal with the Lakers back in February when this first came about, or when Anthony Davis and Rich Paul basically put it out there publicly out there that they want Davis traded to the Lakers or traded in general, but mainly to the Lakers. So I don't give Rob Pelinka any credit for this. I don't get a Laker organization credit for this, to be honest with you. The bottom line is you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the Lakers because both LeBron James and Anthony Davis, it was convenient to them, and the fact is they wanted to be in Los Angeles. Okay, they wanted to be in Los Angeles. That's the bottom line. It was not about the Lakers. Those two players on the Lakers is not about the Lakers. Now the Lakers are the beneficiary of those two guys wanting to be there, and you're certainly not going to give. You're certainly not going to um, give those two guys away. But those guys are not there because of Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka. Those two guys. Bottom line, which concerns, if you have any concerns, again, with a trade like this, I shouldn't have any concerns. I have a championship team right now, or what should be a championship team once the roster is being filled. That once the roster is filled out, and I even when LeBron James gets old, I have a team where I can build around a still young in his prime Anthony Davis at 20 ages 27 and 28. Everything should be good, but it's not because you have an organization that is still a walking time bomb. You have an organization that still, to me, doesn't have a clue what they're doing. Now, we'll see again. It should be easy to build around LeBron James and Anthony Davis. It should be very easy. The toughest parts to those guys to building a team is getting an Anthony Davis or getting a LeBron James, especially when you haven't drafted either one of them. Those are the toughest part. Those are the tough. Getting superstar players is the toughest part. Building the pieces around them should be easy. Like already there's talk about Lakers going after Kemba Walker or making calls to Kyrie Irving, which again, why I don't understand it. I don't. Why would you even call Kawhi Leonard to Kevin Durant? I don't understand it. You have a team that's ready to win right now. You go out there and get 2 to 3 pieces because they only have about $24 million in cap space. You can get a Danny Green, Patrick Beverly. You can get a Terrence Ross, Seth Curry, a combination of 2 to 3 of those players, Brook Lopez possibly in here. Some guys, two to three of those guys, and the rest fill out with bargain basement, veteran minimum guys who are going to take the absolute basically play for nothing to try to win ring chases, to try to win a championship. That's how you built this team: shooters and defense. Not with a third star because with what transpired in the NBA Finals, and we'll get to that later on. There's no need to have a super team. There's no need to have a super team in order to win a championship anymore. You don't have to have 2 to 3 to 4 all stars to try to chase. You're not chasing Golden State anymore. Golden State is going to be on the shelf for in 2020. Yeah, they might make the playoffs, but they're not championship contenders in 2020. So again, I think this is one of these deals where it was absolute. If you ask me who won the trade, I would say I would lean towards New Orleans because I just think New Orleans cannot lose in this trade with all the assets that they picked up. I thought the Lakers gave up too much. I would not have given up pick swaps in 2023, unprotected 2024, and a pick swap in 2025. I would have stopped at 2021 with the top 8 protected, maybe a 2022 unprotected. I would have stopped right there. I'm already giving you 3 rotational players in Ingram, Ball, and Hart who can play right now. You don't have to wait on them. They are ready to play now. A number 4 pick. I mean, that's a lot as it is. I'm not giving you basically half the draft my draft for the next half decade. Like in essence, New Orleans controls the Lakers draft basically until 2025. So that's why I think that any general manager worth their weight or with a half a brain does not make that deal because frankly, with Boston not being really in the mix who were the Lakers compete? Who was the Lakers competing against as far as trying to make this deal? Who was the other team that was going to blow, that was going to force the Lakers to give up everything that they had that they ended up giving up? Knicks weren't in the mix. Boston wasn't in the mix. I didn't hear of any other teams. Teams were scared based on the fact that they knew that Anthony Davis was hell bent on playing in Los Angeles. Teams were scared away from a lot of teams were scared away scared by that, and also considering that teams were going to be were after other free agents, or not feeling desperate to make a move based on the fact what transpired in the finals. And again, New Orleans for the future, I mean, is set. They have so many things that they can do with those players. I mean, they can move their number four pick. They could move Alonzo Ball if they wanted to. I think they'll probably, you know, I think they'll probably keep Ball, Ingram, and Hart and see what the team looks like. They have a lot of options moving forward in terms of building around Zion Williamson. So again, they to me they got over uh, big time. Again, it's a deal that the Lakers had to make. Um, Look at the free agent market. I don't think Kyrie Irving was coming to play with LeBron James. Is a team that would you rather have a team with, let's say they don't make this trade again, there are question marks, already question marks about Ingram and Ball's health going into next year. Do you want to risk those guys with their health questions and add Jimmy Butler to a team with LeBron James? That team is not going anywhere. Team's not going anywhere. So this getting Anthony Davis was a must for the Los Angeles Lakers. There's all there is to it. It was a absolute. You have to get this guy, but when you are an organization that's made so many prior mistakes, and you put yourself in a position to be desperate, you end up giving up probably more than what you had to give up. Or when you're an organization that doesn't have real basketball people running it, you give up more than what you had to give up. Lakers did not have to give up all those picks at the back end of that deal to make this deal happen. They did not have to get like they could have easily absolutely dared New Orleans to either try to keep Anthony Davis and lose him for nothing, or to go through another year like they did last year, where Anthony Davis has one foot out the door, and you're trying to develop Zion Williamson, and you have other guys on the team like Drew Holiday who you don't know who you don't know what you're gonna do with in the future. So the Lakers had more leverage than they realized. But again, when you have somebody in Rob Pelinka, a non-basketball person, as far as making deals like this, running your team, that's what happens. And again, as a Laker fan, I probably should be feeling a lot more confident about the Lakers moving forward, not only next year but into the future than I do, considering the fact that they have, again, two of the five or six, seven best players in the league, in Anthony Davis and LeBron James. One of the losers in this, to me, and all year, for the last 4 to 5 years, they've been acquiring assets. They had a ton of young talent. They came into this season being one of the favorites to get to the NBA Finals, possibly even to upend the Golden State Warriors, was the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics now, in back to back to back years, have watched Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, well, back to back years, watched Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and now Anthony Davis go by the board, and they not acquire any of them. This is despite having all these assets, all the young talent, and you don't get one of those players, not one. Think about that for a second. If you're a Boston Celtic fan, and one of the reasons why they were not able to get one of those players, obviously because they thought, I mean, in some ways they overvalued their assets, but in many ways they thought that they would have a championship team this year, in spite of not picking up one of those players when Gordon Hayward, and Kyrie Irving returned off injuries. They thought they would have a championship team, and Kyrie Irving, Brad Stevens to a lesser extent, made sure basically that that wasn't going to happen. We know what Kyrie Irving did to that team. He almost single-handedly probably brought down the trade value of one Jason Tatum, because Tatum wasn't the same player this year as he was last year. Last year in the playoffs, and not having Kyrie Irving just returned to Boston just guaranteed that they had basically no chance at almost no chance at trading for Anthony Davis in this offseason. Of course, they couldn't trade for him during the season with the rule about having two guys who had signed max extensions. That's a CBA rule, so you couldn't trade in season for Anthony Davis. But the biggest threat, it was perceived that the biggest threat for the Los Angeles Lakers going to this offseason in terms of Anthony Davis was going to be the Boston Celtics. And again, Boston Celtics ends up with no Anthony Davis, no Kawhi Leonard, no Paul George. And again, to me, if you're collecting years and years worth of assets, there's zero excuse not to land one of those guys. Zero. I mean, put Paul George on a team with Kyrie Irving and Al Horford. Put Kawhi Leonard on a Boston Celtic team with Kyrie Irving and Al Horford and a bunch of role players. Even if you take away Tatum even if you had to give away Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they still had enough role players and other guys that they could have been contending for a championship. But they end up basically with nothing, and they'll go into next year in flux. I mean, Jason Tatum, they're gonna probably keep their pieces, keep Tatum and Brown, and build around that, which probably is the best. I mean, frankly is their only move right now. The question is, will Al Horford opt out of his deal, and opt out of his deal and become a unrestricted free agent? We'll see. We'll see about that. But Boston to me is one of the biggest losers in terms of Anthony Davis going to the Los Angeles Lakers. Now moving forward with the Lakers in terms of building the team around Anthony Davis and LeBron James should be easy. There are a number of guys out there, 3-and-D players. You got Patrick Beverly out there. You got Danny Green. You got Seth Curry, who wouldn't be a 3-and-D guy, but a 3-point shooter. You got a Brook Lopez, who had a great year with Milwaukee. Terrence Ross is out there. There are about two to three. There are about two guys that the Lakers still have enough cap space to sign, and they can sign at least two of those guys to surround James and Davis with shooting and some defense. Again, you have to get. If myself, I would go. The first name on the list would be Patrick Beverly. I think this guy, obviously is fearless. He's a underrated. He's actually a pretty good 3-point shooter, a better offensive player than what people realize. Tough guy, hard nosed, is the type of guy, veteran player, is the type of guy that will guard other guys, top perimeter player. You have to. He would be first on my list as far as these veteran role players who can shoot, who can shoot the basketball, and who are veteran players, and who are guys who are still or tough as nails. And a guy who who will have the respect. He's going to have the respect of LeBron James. He's going to have the respect of Anthony Davis because he's fearless. That would be the number one on my list. Then you can go. Again, I don't think they can afford the Indiana kid, but Bogdanovich. I think he's going to get anywhere. Somebody's going to give him probably 10, 12 to 15 million dollars a year somewhere. The guy, he averaged like 18 a game last year. I don't think they can afford him. You can go after Terrence Ross, Danny Green. I think Danny Green is still a very good shooter, a very good offensive shooter. He'll get a lot of wide open looks. I know he didn't perform that well in the playoffs, but playing with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, he will have open looks galore. Veteran guy, won a couple championships. We know he can shoot. We know he can shoot, and we know he can make big shots, and not be scared of the finals because he's played now in what, 3 NBA finals. Seth Curry, very very much improved player. Played well in the play. I thought played had some moments in the playoffs, especially against Golden State. Again, dead eye shooter, one of the best. I think he led the league in 3-point shooting. Well, not led the league, was second or third in 3-point shooting. Shot like 45% in 3-point shooting, 3-point shooting field goal percentage. So he's up there. Brook Lopez, a guy who the Lakers let go, certainly is a possibility. Though there's people who think that might be might not be a great fit because David Anthony Davis is probably going to play the five for the Lakers. But he's a name to think about. So there are plenty of guys out there that the Lakers can go out there and get without question. There are plenty of guys that they can go out there and get. Trying to get Kemba Walker or Kyrie Irving. Kawhi Leonard's not coming to the Lakers. There's zero chance that Kawhi Leonard will even entertain the Lakers. I heard people saying, well, why wouldn't he want to play with LeBron and Anthony Davis? Listen, Kawhi Leonard has a chance, and we'll talk about this more when we get into the finals. Kawhi Leonard has a chance to be an immortal player if he plays his cards right and goes to the Clippers and puts them in position to win championships. Kawhi Leonard right now, I can guarantee you, is talking to Uncle Dennis and thinking about his legacy. Like he's already a certified guaranteed lock Hall of Famer. Now it's about I can literally be one of the greatest players of all time if I can do what I did in with the Clippers, what I did in Toronto with the Clippers. And Kawhi Leonard is not thinking about the Lakers. It's zero. Kawhi Leonard is either going to be a Clipper or a Raptor, and I don't think he's. I think the Raptor thing is one and done in my opinion. So you can just get him out of there, just cancel him out. Durant's not coming to the Lakers, and if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, you cannot afford to wait. You can't afford to have Durant sitting on the shelf for a year. You don't have years to waste in terms of LeBron James prime. You just can't afford it. Even though you would, listen, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis moving in the future would be wonderful. You can't. They can't do it, and Kevin Durant's not taking a pay cut to play with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. It's just not going to happen. Kevin Durant's going to get the maximum amount of money. It's getting the super max as far as the money. He's going to get as much money as possible and get the best deal possible. Going to the Lakers would not be in Kevin Durant's best interest. I can understand the premise for the Lakers. Like even if Durant sits out a year, you have Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Anthony Davis locked down for the next 4 years. You can build that team was automatic favorites to win a championship each year, regardless of what transpires with LeBron James and how he ages. I understand that premise of taking a flyer at Kevin Durant, but it's not worth it. And it wouldn't, Kevin Durant will have no interest in going to the Los Angeles Lakers. So again, this is a deal that I felt like had to be made for both teams. Lakers are clearly more desperate than even New Orleans. The Lakers put themselves in a position to where now the hard part of filling out the roster, or should be the easy part. But for this administration, for this front office, it's going to be hard because they haven't proven to be competent at being able to fill out a roster. We saw what happened last summer, the disaster, with some of the moves that they made in trying to build around LeBron. Now, again, it should be easier because you have two superstars, two top players. It clearly should be, hey, defense and 3-point shooting should be a priority. 3-point shooting and defense in that order should be the priority. But we'll see. I don't think D'Angelo Russell is even an option. He's not taking a pay cut to come with the Lakers. It's not even about what happened with Nick Young and the previous regime. Nobody cares about that. Those guys, Magic is gone. Those other Nick Young is gone. Those people who played on that team are gone. That doesn't even matter. It's but the fact that D'Angelo Russell somewhere is going to get a max contract. So I'm not paying D'Angelo Russell if you're Los Angeles Lakers, I'm not paying D'Angelo Russell as if he's a big three, that type of money. I'm not giving D'Angelo Russell that type of money, and having nothing left on the rest of my roster. Like the Lakers have to be smart about how they go about building this roster. You can't have it top heavy with the fact that LeBron James is going to be 35 years old. Anthony Davis has had a bunch of nagging injuries as we've seen. Nothing major, but just too many. He's going to miss. Anthony Davis is going to miss anywhere from 10 to 15 games. We know that over the course of a season. So, you can't have a situation. You have to have depth. You have to find two or three players to build around the rotation. Now they kept Kuzma, Caruso. They still have that. Mo, Wagner. I think he's a rotational player on a regular season team. I'm not sure if Mills Wagner is a rotational player in the playoffs. I'm not sure about that. I don't think he's quite ready in terms of his career. I don't think he's quite ready to be that type of a top seven player on a playoff team. But he's definitely somebody that you can play over the course of a long regular season. But they have to go out there and they have to add. They have to get two or three guys around LeBron, around Anthony Davis that can defend and that can make outside shots. Again, in a league that's loaded with them, that should not be difficult. It really shouldn't. It should not be difficult. So we'll see moving forward what they do in terms of that. New Orleans, in terms of what New Orleans does with that number 4 pick, there's been a lot of talk of Garland, this kid from Vanderbilt who barely played, had to I think hurt his knee early in the year, but a lot of people are high on him. This is Darius Garland. I like DeAndre Hunter from Virginia myself. I think he is. I would take DeAndre Hunter over R.J. Barrett if I were the Knicks. To be honest with you, I think DeAndre Hunter has Kawhi Leonard type ability. I think he's even a better offensive player coming out of college than Kawhi was. I love DeAndre Hunter's game. Somebody's going to slip up. He's going to fall. DeAndre Hunter is probably going to go around 7 to 8, 9. Somebody's going to get a steal. If you told me DeAndre outside Zion Williamson, DeAndre Hunter was going to be the best player in this draft, I would not be surprised. With all due respect to John Morant. I mean, DeAndre Hunter I'm telling you, this guy has a chance. I feel like he has a chance to be an all-star player for a long time. And I mean, he can already defend. He is a much more polished offensive player than Kawhi Leonard or the Winslow kid, Justice Winslow coming out of Duke, who had that kind of like lockdown defender comparisons, athletic, great athlete, lockdown defender, but has not Justice Winslow does not become the offensive player that will be required to be like a 3-and-D guy. But I love DeAndre Hunter's game, so we'll see. The draft is Thursday. We'll see what transpires with that. As far as the NBA Finals goes, I cannot remember a finals in which the series was not a classic, but the ramifications of the result would have will have impact on the NBA for years to come. Um, give Toronto credit for taking advantage of the opportunities, seizing the moment. Um, I mean, they would not have beaten Golden State with a healthy Kevin Durant. I'm not so sure they would have beaten Golden State with a healthy Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson missed a game and a quarter in that series, and I'll get to Thompson in a minute. Klay Thompson was spectacular in that series. He was lights out in that series. He couldn't miss. So his those injuries, um, the injuries of Klay Thompson were huge, to say the least. Putting Durant aside, but again, Toronto took advantage of it. They don't have to apologize for being the world for being world champions years from now. In the history books of you know when it's all said and done, they'll have 2019 Toronto Raptors world champs. It won't have because Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson got hurt, and because the Warriors were in year 5 straight years making the finals. All that stuff, no, none of that stuff will matter years down the road. As far as that game was concerned, that was the first 3 quarters. That game 6 was a classic. Was a classic game. That the first quarter of that game, I think it was 33-32. Toronto was what the finals was supposed to feel like. Those last 2 games in the finals, games 5 and 6, was what you expected out of the finals as far as level of play. The first 4, not so much with the injuries and just the weirdness of the games. But those last 2 games felt like NBA Finals caliber games. Again, like you have to give the Toronto role players really stepped up. Ibaka was phenomenal. Gasol had his moments. Kyle Lowry finally came up big in the postseason. Had a big game 6. Of course, came out really set the tone for them in that game. Even despite the fact that Kawhi was just okay in game 5. I mean, game 6, he wasn't great. He was just okay in game 6. But certainly he had done his damage over the course of the playoffs and in the series over the course of the playoffs, and so and it should have been final. Of course, and rightfully so, won Finals MVP. Draymond Green killed Golden State in that game. I mean, he had those 8 turnovers. I know he had a triple double with the 19 rebounds, but those 8 turnovers were just. I mean, you can't have 8 turnovers in a decisive game, in an elimination game. That just cannot happen, and that I mean those turn. I mean, he would have turnovers that would lead to Toronto buckets. They were momentum killers, to say the least. You cannot have that in a game in a decisive game. That really killed that killed Golden State. As far as Steph Curry goes, there were a couple narratives that annoyed me throughout the course of the NBA Finals. The first one was this idea that Steph Curry cannot play in big games, in particular in the NBA Finals. We went through this in a previous podcast, where if you look at Steph Curry's Finals resume, it's really been near spectacular. It's been great. He should have been Finals MVP in 2015. He had a bad Finals in 2016, 2017, 2018. Steph Curry was spectacular in the Finals. He was great in the Finals. It just so happened that Kevin Durant was better. In this Finals, again, I know he did not shoot the ball well, but when you have 3 people guarding you at times, which was the case in this Finals, triangle into boxing one, and you still put up 36 and 5. Listen. I'm not. I don't see how you can knock Curry for his performance in this Finals. I really don't. Was Klay Thompson better? Yes, Klay Thompson was spectacular in this Finals. Klay Thompson had 30 points through 3 quarters in this Finals. Klay Thompson shot like almost close to like 57% from the 3-point range in this Finals. He was spectacular. And Klay Thompson, look at what Klay Thompson has done in the last 3 game 6s with elimination games. In elimination games, he scored 30, 35, and 41. That 41, of course, was that famous Oklahoma City game 6 with the 11 3-pointers. The 35 last year against Houston in game 6. And this year, Game 6, he goes for 30. We know this guy is a big time shooter, a big time pressure player when facing elimination. And chances are, if he kept playing like that and Golden State somehow would have won, Klay Thompson probably would have been MVP of the finals. That's not a knock on Steph Curry. Again, this narrative, and again, it's a very lazy narrative, knocking Steph Curry for not having a definitive shot in his finals career or in his playoff career, a definitive shot that separates him. Like you have people arguing that you will have idiots arguing that Robert Horry is a better playoff performer than Steph Curry. You have people arguing that Chauncey Billups is a better playoff performer than Steph Curry. You have people arguing that Kyrie Irving, based on that shot he hit, game winning shot he hit in 2016, is a better playoff performer than Steph Curry. You really will have people arguing, making those arguments. Again, look at Steph Curry's body of work in the playoffs and in the finals. It is There haven't been 12 players in the history of basketball who have been better playoff performers than Steph Curry. Maybe you can even put him in the top 10 all time in terms of playoff performance. It really hasn't in terms of his numbers and you know those look what he did at the end of that Oklahoma City series, 5 games, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, look what he did against Portland in that Portland series in the Western Conference Finals. Like those games count. All right, those performances count. When we're talking playoff performances, or look what he did against Cleveland the last 2 years. Would have been Finals MVP if not for Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was out of this world, best player in the world. So again, it is a lazy narrative to knock Steph Curry and what Steph Curry has not done in the playoffs. It really is. I just got tired of hearing about it because it's just not accurate when you look at his body of work during his playoff career. It's just not accurate. It's not like it just trying to say that he's not a big time playoff performer. It's just not the case at all. As far as Kawhi Leonard goes, thinking about great playoff performances over the course of the last decade or 15 years, I think I can make a case that he had the best playoff run of any player post Shaq. I mean, Shaquille O'Neal had some dominant runs. The run Shaquille O'Neal had in 2001 was spectacular. I maybe even post Jordan. I mean, I like Shaq did have Kobe, so you had to take that into consideration. I mean, those runs Shaq had from 2000 to 2002 were spectacular, but he did have Kobe Bryant. Uh, Pascal Siakam was the second best player on that team. Pascal Siakam will be an All Star, and I like Siakam's game a lot. I think that can be a better version of Draymond Green and maybe even a lesser version of Scottie Pippen. I think he has that kind of ability. But you look at what Kawhi did in this postseason. He goes for 732 points, third all time in total points scored in the postseason behind Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Only 6 other players have had 700 points in the postseason. Jordan, LeBron, Shaq, Iverson, Olajuwon. Those are the only guys that have had more than 700 points in the postseason. Kobe came close in '09 with 695. But considering that he takes a team that was not even sniffing a championship, that was a perennial playoff team, good team. We knew it was never a threat to win a championship. He's the single. You switch him. And they added some other pieces. And they added Gasol. Siakam improved. You had Danny Green, of course. Brand Fleet, hit some big shots. But he is the single reason why that team went from playoffs to championship in 1 year in an improved Eastern Conference. Remember, that Eastern Conference last couple years versus the top of the Eastern Conference this year is not even a comparison. Milwaukee, Philadelphia were legit finals type teams, a legit championship caliber teams that could have got to the finals. Those are real teams. In the last couple of years in the Eastern Conference, you haven't had any outside of Cleveland. There haven't been any real teams. Boston was not a championship team last year. They were a product of a bad conference, and they happened to get to the finals the last couple of Eastern Conference finals the last 2 years because of how bad the conference is. The top of the Eastern Conference is legit. Milwaukee, Toronto, Philadelphia, Indiana. Once they get a healthy Oladipo back, those are real teams and legitimate teams that are very good. And for in 1 year to take that team to a championship is one of the great runs. Like I said, I think it's better than a run that I think it's more impressive than what Dwayne Wade did with Miami. He still had a Shaquille O'Neal that finished second in MVP the previous year and still was the best big man in basketball in 2006. More impressive than Dirk Nowitzki's run, and he had a great run. And I feel because Dirk Nowitzki, again, that Dirk Nowitzki run was great. I mean, he did go through a bunch of Dirk Nowitzki's the competition level that Dirk Nowitzki went through was more impressive. I would say Kawhi's individual performance on both ends of the court was more impressive than Dirk Nowitzki. But those, Olajuwon 94. I guess you can go back to that. So those are the three, that I would put it up there as far as great individual performances. Not doing it, Olajuwon and Dirk Nowitzki, where you are so by far the best player on your team that you basically carried the team to a championship. Like Olajuwon in '94 was by far the best player on his team. I mean, he had like Otis Thorpe and Vernon Maxwell and Kenny Smith, guys like that. Dirk Nowitzki, his second best player, an old Jason Kidd who was older at that point in his career. Was on the downside. Jason Terry, JJ Barea, guys, Sean Marion. I mean, good players, but not all-star caliber players. And now you have Kawhi Leonard with Siakam, who again will be an all-star but not quite there yet. Kyle Lowry, who had been a playoff bust over the course of his career, and a bunch of cagey, tough veteran players who came up big in the NBA Finals. And again, the NBA moving forward will never look the same. I think dynasties are over. Golden State's dynasty has been I think the Golden State's dynasty has been put on hold. We'll see if Durant signs. It sounds like Durant's going to. It really sounds like Durant's going to the Knicks. Like that. It sounds like that move to New York. In terms of going to getting treatment in New York wasn't just about his medical stuff. That the Knicks thing, Durant to the Knicks, or Durant possibly to New York, Brooklyn is going to happen. That the door is shut on him returning to Golden State. So again, we'll see how it plays out over the next couple of weeks. Free agency starts, I think June 30th, July 1st, June 30th. We'll see how that plays out. But this thing with Golden State, again, looking back again, it was a great 5-year run. You win 3 championships in 5 years. That's a great run. They certainly could have easily. It could have been 5 straight. Could have been 4 out of 5. Probably should have been 4 out of 5. They probably should have either won in 16 and with the injuries this year could have easily won this year. So they probably would look back on it saying that we left 1 on the table, that we should have had 4 out of 5. And again, when it ends quickly with dynasties. It's something that you just don't necessarily see coming. It's abrupt, it's quick, and it's painful. And this was the worst way for their dynasty to end. Not only losing, but with these injuries. Klay Thompson, I expect Klay Thompson to be back on Golden State in terms of him re-signing with them. I thought that before the injury. I don't think anything will change. But they're gonna have, even if they lose Durant, to free agency, they are going to be capped out for the years to come because they are already over with Curry's injury, not Curry's injury, Curry's salary. Draymond's still making max money with his deal and some of the other deals that they have. Who knows what happens with DeMarcus Cousins? I don't anticipate that he'll probably be there. So it's going to be a year. Next year is going to be a year transition, certainly for the Golden State Warriors. But again, one of the great runs, 5-year runs in terms of winning, getting the 5 straight finals, 3 championships, probably the best since the Bulls had that six championships in 8-year run back in the 90s. Of course, the only the times that they didn't win championships when Jordan was, playing baseball, and but didn't three-peat. They did not three-peat. And again, Lakers, no one, only the Lakers and the Bulls have three-peated since the Celtics did it back in the 60s. So yeah, the Bulls doing it twice and the Lakers doing it. Were the last team to do it in 2002. In the early 2000s, 0 to 02, 2002 to 2002. I don't think you're going to see again. I think dynasties are over. To be honest with you, I think the NBA next year. Look at 2020. The title is wide open as far as I'm concerned. I think they're anywhere from 7 to 10 teams, or maybe even 10 to 12 teams who have a legitimate chance at getting to the finals and winning a championship. There will be no dominant team whatsoever next year. If I'm Denver, if I'm a Portland, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, I feel like I can win the championship. Like if I'm the Clippers and I get Kawhi Leonard, I feel like I can win the championship. Lakers are certainly will be right there. Houston, despite all the craziness going on there, they still should be in the mix. They still will be in the mix to win a championship. Daryl Morey is going to pull off some type of move. Was Capella? I don't think Chris Paul is tradable, but Capella and maybe flip him into a couple pieces. Who know? With that. But the NBA for the first time in basically 5 years will be wide open going into 2020. And if you're Kawhi Leonard and you want to take your legacy to another level and become possibly an iconic player, you go to the Clippers and you win a championship. You win a championship with the Clippers in front of LeBron and Anthony Davis playing next door to you. That's what you do. And that's what I think Kawhi Leonard will do. I think Kawhi Leonard's a smart guy. I think his peoples are smart. Uncle Dennis and company think they know what they're doing. From that standpoint, he's going to go to the Clippers. The Clippers will become instant contenders. And you put Kawhi on and I mean they still have the ability to re-sign some. They have some nice young pieces. They wanted to give up. They signed Kawhi Leonard. Now they would have had to give up pieces that they signed Kawhi and another max free agent. If they just sign Kawhi and keep their pieces and make a couple moves where they can add some other pieces, they will be fine. You just saw Toronto win a championship with one great player and a bunch of very good players. There's no reason why the Clippers couldn't do that, even in the Western Conference come next year. There's no reason why they couldn't do that. That Clipper team was legit. That Clipper team was very good this year. The team played hard, and they have young players that are getting better. Like Montrezl Harrell is getting better. Shamet, those guys. Gillis Alexander is going to be a good player in this league. So that team's been in the playoffs. I think they'll be right there next year as a team, as a legit team to contend for a championship. I don't know about Dallas with Porzingis and Doncic. That might take longer than I anticipated. But again, in the West, I mean, Clippers will be right there. You have Portland, you have Denver, you have Houston. Those 4 are off the bat. Oklahoma City will be somewhat in the mix, though. I don't think Oklahoma City can get to the finals. But they'll be in the mix as far as the playoffs and as far as, a team that, just to somewhat keep your eye on. Maybe they make a move, turn Steve Adams into something. Who knows? The bottom line is there will be a number of teams going into next year who feel like they can win the championship. And that has not been the case. That number has been basically at 1 or 2 at the most in the past 5 years. So already the offseason has gotten off to a wild start with the Anthony Davis trade. I expect to see more trades come draft night. I expect to see again free agency. Now, free agency will not be as wild as it has been, as it was perceived to be because of the Thompson Durant injuries. Maybe that takes some off, take some some juice out of free agency, but there's still a number of guys out there. Where does Kyrie go? Jimmy Butler go? What happens to Tobias Harris? There's still some moves to be made. What does Milwaukee do with Chris Middleton? So there's still some decisions to be made. We will certainly be keep you abreast on future podcasts about the free agent moves, and get Rob Sapp and Chad Quinn to give their thoughts on what the future of the league in terms of free agency will look like. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. As always, this is the Real Deal Podcast with Cyril Joe Quinn, telling it like it is with no apology.